Alrighty, Skwatter of the Sprites Templar, back with Sherlock Holmes, Consulting Detective, Volume 1. Let's do it. That was nice. Okay, let's play this bullshit. This one is going to be played on the Utake emulator, so a lot of the keyboard shortcuts that I'm used to with RetroArch are not going to work that way. In fact, to bring up the menu to go to the cheats, F1, that actually resets the console. And God, I hope I don't do that. Okay, let's do it.
I think you'll find these tools to be positively invaluable as you endeavor to help Holmes solve these cases. Choose an icon to hear a description.
Alright, let's see what this is.
Choosing this icon puts a notebook at your fingertips. I believe you'll find that your notebook is your greatest detective tool. Use it to keep track of names and places that you believe you might want to investigate. When you do decide upon a person to question or a place to research, first go to your notebook, choose the appropriate name, then choose the horse and carriage. You will be off and running. Because the Baker Street regulars are often critical to solving a case, I've included them in your notebook. Use them wisely.
I see.
This gives you access to the London directory. In it, you will find everyone you need to query in your attempt to solve these cases. The directory is also the source for your notebook. Simply choose a name or place in the directory and drag it over into your notebook for easy reference. You may also use the directory much like your notebook. First, choose your intended destination, then choose the horse and carriage, and you'll have another way to get from one place to the next.
Nifty.
What he found in the Thames, read it in the Times.
Holmes has always claimed that the newspaper is a treasure of information when one can read between the lines. When you are ready to consult the Times, you may of course have a look at your paper copy or simply choose here for a close-up view.
Yeah, no, basically back when the newspaper was there to report the news and not to report some kind of narrative. Sick and disgusting like it does nowadays. Evil!
Choose this horse and carriage after you have chosen your destination from either your notebook or the directory. It will take you where you want to go.
Nice. Are these the Baker Street irregulars?
The Baker Street irregulars are an untidy bunch of young street boys who happen to be on the proper side of the law. They have an undeniable knack for bringing back priceless bits of information in a fraction of the time it would take Holmes or myself. When you want to summons them, first choose the destination from your notebook or the directory, then choose the irregulars. In no time at all, they will return with whatever details they were able to unearth.
I see.
When you believe you have directed Holmes to all of the right and proper places, and you have enough information to name the murderer and the motive, choose this icon.
Okay.
Mr. Holmes' files provide a wealth of information that he has been collecting over the years. Some of it is quite pertinent to the various cases, and some of it offers simply a fascinating and informative sidelight. When you want to access the files, first choose the destination from your notebook or the directory, then choose here when you want to see what relevant information Holmes might already have at hand.
Okay, so you have to travel to a location in order to find Holmes's own documents about that location? That's some time, location, space-time bending logic there, my young friend. Okay, so let's have a look. I think this is to get back. Yes, okay. Table of contents. Let's see. Holmes's introduction.
London is not a beautiful city. Under the soot that covers its buildings is a teeming mass of 4 million souls trying to survive, mostly off of each other. You see it in the paper every day. Thankfully, we have the London Times to keep us informed of all these troubling activities with an unbiased eye and razor-sharp accuracy. We find this publication to be of invaluable assistance in our investigations, and I'm sure you will as well. Among the forces of evil which run rampant in this city, there are also, thankfully, two groups of individuals who will aid us in our cause. As we do, They attempt to right wrongs and restore harmony and civility to the streets of London. The first of these groups is a ragtag association of young ruffians. I call them the Baker Street Irregulars. Don't let them fool you. They may be scruffy and ill-bred, but they are on the right side of the law. They can go everywhere, see everything, and overhear everyone. They are my eyes and ears in the streets of London, unquestionably a tremendous asset in our work. They will help us in our investigations if they can. The other group is a far more civilized collection of gentlemen and institutions. I call them the Baker Street Regulars. They, too, will be extremely useful in our work. At the start of any investigation, do keep in mind that it is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Unwittingly, one begins to twist facts to suit theories instead of theories to suit facts.
Yes.
The people and places to whom I will now introduce you will help us to collect the facts. May we use them wisely. Come, the game's afoot.
Yeah. Alrighty. Yeah, I was gonna say scruffy and ill-bred. Yeah, like Al Green. Hi-oh. Alright.
Let's see who these people are here. Ellis. So, we have Sherlock Holmes, a brilliant detective who is quite observant. He enjoys testing his mental skills by solving difficult mysteries. His partner, Dr. John Watson. Watson is Sherlock Holmes's faithful assistant and biographer. He is often invaluable to Holmes's investigations.
I see. Henry Ellis.
Mr. Henry Ellis is the foreign news editor for the London Times. He is a great reservoir of information of what's happening on the continent. He also has an interest in crime news. Ellis is always happy to help when he can, but you must be careful of what you tell him, or you might find what you've confided to him in the next day's Times.
Son of a bitch. Yeah, somebody should say, oh yeah, well you can't print what you can't write, so maybe we should break your hands, huh?
Edward Hall is a young barrister whom you will find on most days at the Old Bailey. He's a cut above the other unimaginative members of his profession.
Holmes, don't you think you should explain to them the difference between a barrister and a solicitor?
Yes, of course, Watson. A solicitor handles the routine legal business of our society. If you do not have to go before a court, you will have no need for a barrister. If you must go before a court, then your solicitor would engage the services of a barrister.
Interesting. Good to know. Should I ever be in that situation there?
Quentin Hogg is a crime reporter for the Police Gazette. He is an ex-police inspector who found the environment of Scotland Yard less than stimulating. He has a strong deductive mind and is a very good resource.
Okay.
Sir Jasper is the chief medical examiner for St. Bartholomew's Hospital. He is London's greatest forensic pathologist. You can depend on him for all the technical details that can be obtained from any corpse whose cause of death is in question.
Alrighty, he's the corpseman.
This gentleman is the head chemist at Scotland Yard Criminology Laboratory. It is rumored that Murray lives in the lab. He is eternally bent over one of his tables trying to extract the history of a crime from the physical evidence he's been given. You can learn much from old HR if you can follow the twists and jumps of his thinking.
He'll have the ladies twisting and jumping and bent over his desk, that's for certain.
Head clerk Disraeli O'Brien is your contact in the Office of Records. The Office of Records contains legal records, both criminal and civil, as well as state papers. I think you'll find O'Brien to be a walking, or should I say sitting encyclopedia of the office's affairs.
Of course he's a sitting encyclopedia. His indolent, lazy Irish race is always like that. O'Brien.
Now here is a person who usually gets in the last word. Langdale Pike is a human reference work on social scandal, especially on the London scene. He contributes bits of gossip to the garbage papers that cater to an inquisitive public.
I see.
Porky is not a pillar of society, I dare say, but he is a man who has learned from his mistakes and is trying to start a new life. Although he is no longer in prison, he is still behind bars. Or shall I say, a bar.
Jolly good one, Holmes.
Yes, Watson. Well, the bar in question is the Raven and Rat Inn. Porky is the proprietor. He has been of great help to us in the past, and I expect he will continue to be in the future.
Because I was going to say, yeah, former criminal, he looks grim. There's a little bit of schmutz on your face there, and there, and there. Looks like he's also got an eye patch. The London Library.
If I can't find something in my own files, I go and examine the overflowing shelves of the great London Library. It is a wealth of information. Ah, Scotland Yard. If the Yard knew how to examine evidence with any skill, there would be no need for our services. Inspector Lestrade is the pick of a bad lot. But it is true they may be a source of valuable information. After all, the professional police have methods for gathering facts that are not open to us.
Yes. Inspector Lestrade, the main inspector at Scotland Yard who deals with Sherlock Holmes. Sometimes he comes to Holmes for help when he can't solve a case. Other times he believes that Holmes is a nuisance who interferes with official police business. Somerset House.
This is a records office housing documents pertaining to births, marriages, deaths, and last wills and testaments.
Alrighty. So after that information dump, let's get to the meat and potatoes. The Mummy's Curse. Right. Indubitably.
What rubbish! What balderdash!
You must have read something terribly disturbing, Watson, for you to be so overwrought this early in the morning.
Indeed, Holmes. It's irresponsible of the Times to play upon people's superstitions.
Ah, you must be referring to the affair of the Mummy's Curse.
Has the entire city in an uproar. 3 men dead, and they expect us to believe that a 4,000-year-old mummy was the murderer. I'm surprised you haven't taken some interest in this case, Holmes.
To the contrary, my dear Watson. I have made some inquiries. Because I dare say I do believe this murderer is a much younger chap.
Yes. Very, very witty, Holmes. Very, very witty. Alrighty. Let's get to it. Okay. Well, might as well save that game. Okay. And I think in this game, S, yes. S saves the state. Alright. Mummy. Oh, I think I just started it over again.
What rubbish! What...
Call Lisa. How do I get back to that now without going through it? Maybe if I click randomly around. Oh, that speeds it up, I see. Alright, well, deuce, and, okay, well, here we be, I hope. Okay, well, let's have a look at our notepad and see where we can start right here. Alright, so I guess I'll not mince words and say, of course I am following a walkthrough, so first thing that I can see is that it tells me to go to a Dr. Ebenezer Turnbull. I see. Turnbull. Oh. Is that all? Nothing. Nothing! You've got nothing! Nothing! Well, let's try the directory, shall we? Ah, London. So that will be T. Turnbull. Dr. Ebenezer Turnbull. Let's see what we've got on him. Turnbull Ebenezer, the third son of the Earl of Downey. At age 6, he discovered a Roman ruin on the family's country estate, which he continues to work at to this day. He has led a number of archaeological excursions, notably several to the Luxor-Karnak area, where he has made some significant discoveries. Interesting indeed. So, let's have a look-see. Bing bong! And let's see. Let's go.
What did you learn, Watson?
Not a thing, Holmes.
You learned nothing?
Don't get testy, Holmes. There wasn't anyone about.
My humble apologies, Watson.
How respectful and polite. The organizer of an expedition to Egypt. He was killed there. Gasp. Alright, let's go to Andrew Weatherby. Boing. That'll be W. Boing. Weatherby. Nothing on file. Perhaps you can help, Baker Street irregulars. Quite a lovely lady, and such a tiny bed she is. Okay. Well, let's go over to his place, shall we? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And kerbango.
I'm very sorry to intrude on you in your moment of grief.
Oh, that's quite all right. You know, Andrew and I haven't been married very long.
Long enough to know if he had any enemies?
Oh, Andrew was so unassuming. Everyone liked him.
Including Mr. Urubaru?
What?
I really loved my husband.
I'm sure you did. Oh, English toffee. My favorite.
Would you like one?
Please.
Sorry, you'll have to open this yourself. I've never been any good with these things.
Kind of a useless twat. It's no wonder he died. He was killed on the boat ride back to England. Let's see. Next on the list, James Windibank. The Windy Windibank. Oh, James Windibank, professor of Egyptology and Science at London University, published a paper on the rare antiquities buried in the deserts of Arabia. Ardently interested in the advancement of science, and has had some difficulty with the Anti-Vivisectionist League over the past several years. Yikes. Oy vey, well, let's go see what the Baker Street irregulars think of him, we shall. Of James and him. Caught the missus at home. She says the chap who wrote the newspaper stories about a mummy of yours was one of Winterbank's old students. Says she was leaving for the cemetery. Remarkable. Remarkable. Absolutely. I think I know who murdered these men already. Yes, indeed. And now, Turnbull. Let's see what they have to say. I don't think I consulted them. Holmes, pardon me. Landlady said he was gone and didn't know when he would return. Also said he was really into mummies. Hope that helps you. I see. So, is he talking to himself or me? It's a bit strange. And I wonder who dug that knife into the wall when Holmes was talking. It's a bit disturbing. A bit grim. A bit grim if I do say so myself. Akram Fahmy. let's see. That'll be F. This guy. Booyah. Akram Fahmy, native of Saudi Arabia, intensely interested in medieval artifacts, particularly of the precious nature. Alright, well, in that case, let's, I don't think I traveled to James Windibank. Maybe there's something there. Windibank. Travel.
Oh, look. There is a note on the door that says that they will be out all afternoon. It appears we have wasted our time.
Excellent deduction, Watson. You're finally learning.
Wow, maybe not as polite as I thought. That was really passive-aggressive. Okay, well, in that case, go back to the directory and continue on with Akram Fahmy. Did I already do this? I think so. Yes. Nobody was so bored smell a rat. Interesting indeed. Well, let's see if we can't rouse them.
Hello? Is anyone there? Mr. Fahmy, are you at home?
Apparently so, Watson. Look,
Oh, what ghastly business. Everyone will assume the mummy has struck again.
hardly a plausible assumption. This poor fellow has a knife in his back and not a scrap of sheeting about his neck.
How very observant, Holmes.
Ring up Scotland Yard. This case is simple enough for them to solve.
You've solved it already.
Elementary, my dear Watson. Obviously, it was the butler.
Butler? What butler?
Exactly my point. A man as wealthy as Akram Fahmy would always have a manservant about him. After the foul deed, this one obviously beat a hasty retreat.
Excellent deduction, Mr. Holmes. Excellent deduction, if I do say so myself. At the risk of sounding overconfident, I do believe, yes. Alright. So, next on the line is Abdullah Al-Saud. So, would that be Al-Saud? Yes, there we go. Okay. See what this guy is all about there, boy. Nothing on file. What the hell has Holmes been wasting his time on? Here's one for you, Holmes. When we got there, we ran into Scotland Yard's finest. It seems Al-Saud was murdered. Lestrade thinks the butler did it. I guess you'll get no help from him, eh?
What did you learn, Watson?
Not a thing, Holmes.
You learned nothing?
Don't get testy, Holmes. There wasn't anyone about.
My humble apologies, Watson.
A little bit of time traveling there, repeating. Well then, next on the line is Louise and Merrill Fenwick. Boing. Fenwick. Okay. Louise Fenwick, daughter of Clarence Clement, former president of the Bank of England, currently married to Merrill Fenwick. Although they were, although they were on the ship from Cairo, they didn't know Andrew Weatherby and really didn't seem to care about his death. All they did was complain about their lousy accommodations. I don't think they will be taking a cruise in the near future. Yeah, I see. Well, they certainly live together, so let's go and investigate Merrill as well. Fenwick Merrill,
Merrill Fenwick is president of the Bank of England. He was originally employed there by Clarence Clement, the bank's former president. Well, it's the same thing. Okay. Well, let's travel.
All this way and not a clue to help us solve this case. How terribly disappointing.
Well, sometimes that happens there, Mr. Watson, there, boy. Okay. Now, Philip Travis. Let's see. Boing. 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 Nothing on file. Mr. Holmes, this guy's a loony. Well then, let's go see what makes him so loony.
So you've been reading my articles in the Times. I'm honored. What do you think of them?
Quite interesting. You've clearly been following the murders quite closely. Who do you suspect?
I believe it is the work of the ancient Egyptian god Pumatef and his goddess Neith.
Be serious.
I couldn't be more serious. You see, Mr. Holmes, although I am a journalist, I was actually trained as an Egyptologist. I know all about these mysteries. That's why my articles carry the force of truth.
And what is the truth, Mr. Travis?
The truth is that the Egyptians discovered the secret of life. What we call science is mere child's play compared to the knowledge they had. Look at this. Do you know what this is?
It appears to be a mummified animal of some sort, a monkey perhaps.
Precisely.
Quite a conversation piece.
I've been using it in some very important experiments which, if successful, will unlock the secret for bringing back the souls of the dead. I've been working on it, Mr. Holmes, using these tanner leaves. Watch. Uma lotus. Licantina. Burura.
It appears that the soul of this particular monkey has no intention of making a reappearance.
It's only a matter of time. I know it is. After all, these secrets have been buried for thousands of years. These things don't happen overnight. But it will happen someday. This is my mission.
I believe I'll leave you to your work, Mr. Travis.
Don't go yet. Let me show you more.
Thank you. Some other time, perhaps.
What a kook. You're right. Alrighty. Anthony Uruburu. Yes, that was the guy that he was talking about. Okay. Uruburu. Strange last name for a strange first name. Nothing on file. Useless. King of useless. This guy so smelled of whiskey, that's for true. What the bloody hell is going on?
If this is an inconvenient time, perhaps I could come back, Mr. Uruburu.
I wouldn't hear of it. Just a bit of a hangover. I've weathered plenty worse than this.
I'm investigating the death of Andrew Weatherby. You were on the ship with him out of Cairo. Did you happen to make his acquaintance?
Weatherby, a most tedious fellow.
So tedious, one might want to do him in.
Don't be preposterous. In my condition, I couldn't have done anything of the sort.
What condition was that?
And I thought you were a great detective. The first night out, a few of us threw a bit of a bash that went on until we docked in London.
Did Mrs. Weatherby attend this particular bash?
She was the guest of honor, you might say.
Wellity, wellity, wellity. Let's have ourselves a good old-fashioned look-see right there. Okay. Well, Clarissa Weatherby, might as well look her up then. Boing. Weatherby. Doesn't seem to have
an entry. That's what I'm thinking of. Clarissa Weatherby. Well, oh, didn't I just talked to her, that's right. Yeah, fellow passenger on the boat to England. She was married to one of the victims, and she had an affair with Uruburu. That's what he meant by that. Yeah. Alrighty, well, Lawrence Feld. Let's see what this guy's all about there, boy. Chairman of the Egyptology Department at the London University College. You want us to go nosing around university? Places like that gives us a creep side, though. Yeah. Oh boy. Well, let's go and see this mother right now.
Such a tragedy. Fine men all and such outstanding scholars. I still can't quite get over the shock of it.
We understand.
Professor, we're looking for background information on these three men so that we can understand how their murders might tie together.
Well, let me begin with Dr. Turnbull. Ebenezer Turnbull was responsible for organizing the Carteret expedition. Quite a remarkable man, really. This was the first time he teamed up with James Windibank. Professor Windibank was one of our most popular lecturers. In fact, several of his former students were also eager to accompany him. I recall him saying that he was having difficulty choosing. Weatherby turned out to be the lucky one. Though it seems far from it now, doesn't it? I suppose Smith and Travis turned out to be the lucky ones after all.
Smith and Travis?
Peter Smith accepted the invitation to join another expedition. As for Philip Travis, he was quite keen on accompanying Professor Windibank. In fact, he became exceedingly upset when Andrew Weatherby, a postgraduate student in the department, was chosen instead. Took it rather personally, I should say.
Well, well, well. I think we have solved this case already. But other than that, Captain Herman Ramsey. Let's see. Ramsey, huh? Like the Pharaoh? Ramsey, Herman. What do you got? What do you got? Captain of the Eastern Empress. Ramsey put Tanny in charge of the whole investigation. He did. Oh, yeah. Let's go and see what's going on this.
We had just come through a rather grueling storm, so I sent my first officer, Luther Tenney, down into the hold to check on the condition of the cargo. He reported back post-haste that Mr. Weatherby was lying dead among the Egyptian artifacts we were transporting. I turned over the helm to Tenney and went below to have a look for myself.
And did what you see confirm Teddy's report?
Unfortunately, yes. Weatherby was lying next to that coffin, or whatever it's called, apparently strangled. I went back to the bridge and put Tenney in charge of the investigation.
And what did he uncover?
Well, you'll have to ask him for the specifics, because I can scarcely recall the details.
Kind of useless. What kind of a captain is that? Alright. Okay. Next is Luther Tenney. Let's go over here. Luther, huh? Boing. Boing. Nothing on file. Baker Street irregulars here. Dear Holmes, passengers were a curious lot. Tenney found a stiff. He did. I found a stiff. Glad to hear you being so respectful there, huh?
Let me tell you, a murder, even by a 4,000-year-old mummy, was only one odd thing in a string of bad luck on this voyage.
What sort of bad luck?
It all started with the crew, really. Seamen were a rather superstitious lot to begin with, and the idea of carrying about a 4,000-year-old mummy had them shivering in the timbers. We almost faced a bloody mutiny. Then there were the passengers, a strange lot. I can tell you that reporter fellow, Travis, did us no service at all with his mystic mumbo-jumbo. He and Professor Winterbank had a regular war of words going on about whatever powers this mummy was supposed to have. And there was the two Arabs.
Arabs? Interesting. Do you recall their names?
I should hope I do. One was called Barmy. He always carried around this curious little box. No clue what was in it, but Barmy never let it out of his sight. The other one's name was Al-Sad, and he spent most of his time lurking about watching Barmy. My guess is he wanted that box.
Sounds like you had your hands full.
I haven't even told you about the fight yet between Mr. Weatherby and Mr. Arubaru.
Over what?
Weatherby's wife, I'd say, though they were a tight-lipped lot about it.
I see. Tell me, Lieutenant, we understand that you were the first person to discover the body.
Yes, sir, I was. Captain Ramsey sent me down to inspect the hold. And I went immediately over to them Egyptian crates. Professor Winterbank was particularly anxious about him, you know.
Could you describe the scene as you remember it?
I'll never forget it. I just made my way to the back of the hold, and I noticed at the top of them crates, the one what carried the mummy's coffin was raised up kind of funny like. The coffin lid was laid off to one side, and there was Mr. Weatherby all sprawled on the floor next to a bowl of ashes. He'd been strangled by a length of the mummy's sheeting. It's bloody gruesome, I tell you. Poor bloke's eyes popped out like a couple of sausages on a hot iron skillet.
Quite a vivid picture, don't you agree, Holmes?
Quite. And you reported this to Captain Ramsey straight away?
Absolutely. In fact, the captain put me in charge of the entire investigation.
And what did you discover? Did anybody have any contact with Weatherby on the night of the murder?
Not that I know of. I could account for all the crew. And the passengers were in their cabins as far as anyone knew or would say. Nobody saw anything, heard anything, or knew anything. Besides, Weatherby was seasick from the beginning. He stayed pretty much in his cabin all the time. Maybe that's why the lovely young Mrs. Weatherby was gallivanting about.
With Urubaru?
Yes, indeed.
And what of the bowl? Where is it now?
The bowl?
With the ashes.
Oh, yes. You know, now that you mention it, I don't recall ever seeing it again.
Nice graphical glitches. I think it's probably because of the shit-ass emulator there, boy. Alright. So, we've gone through, from the walkthrough, all of the pertinent characters, I do believe. Yes. Okay. The game begins with Dr. Watson complaining about rubbish in the London Times. Yes, specifically he is upset that the Times has run a sensationalist story about the mummy's curse, which has recently killed 3 men. Alright, go to the newspaper section and read up on the case. Alright. Wow, there's a lot there. So, go to the newspaper section to read up on the case. Alright, so February 6, 1888. I've also got a scan of the actual copy here. So, fire broke out, fatal explosion, deaths. Respectable woman retired to capitalist butler, bored, cholera, funerals, London necropolis, miscellaneous, Dr. Sayre's magic elixirs, musical boxes, young gentleman wishes board and reside, fatal explosion of shell, the cholera, Nice. The new polar expedition. Ireland. The Times. I see. Okay. Little Egypt makes a hit, perhaps? No, that's the London necropolis. The cholera. Polar expedition. So it should be in the middle, if I'm not mistaken. Ireland. Yes. Well, then this should be it here. Little Egypt makes a hit, yes. Last night the Tivoli was the scene of a novel divertissement. Little Egypt, that agile and beautiful exponent of the graceful, sensuous oriental dance du ventre, maybe, entertained all present with her lithesome swaying body. Indeed. Your descriptions are. A nimble-fingered pianist who was up in profane music sounded the opening chords of the wicked dance, and with writhing and twisting body, Little Egypt stepped out to the measure, while all the men looked on with open-mouthed astonishment. Louder and louder banged the piano, more and more rapidly the abdominal muscles of the dancer twitched, her eyes gleamed with the excitement of it all, and her bosom heaved with tantalizing irregularity. With a crash of the chords, the dance ceased, and the men were left with silence broken only by long-drawn-out sighs from a couple of the gentlemen. Little Egypt has come to England by way of Egypt and Syria. Vague rumors persist that she was deported for illegal political activities in those countries, but quite a few Englishmen are glad to have her here. And that's how it all began, people. Alright, so... burglaries, eh? Indian Mission, Austria-Hungary. Indian Mission, Cape Colony, Portugal. Friday. Okay, looks like it's just the three of them there. Go to the newspaper section to read up on the case. Like, for God's sakes. Like, I'm trying to figure this out here, there, Mr. Walkthrough. You're supposed to tell me what to do, you know. Sporting, deaths. Deaths, perhaps. Egerton, no. Denison, Eastman. Foreign news, Egypt. No. Interesting indeed. Scrolling through the walkthrough now. Okay, well, I'm not entirely sure where the damn information is about the mummy. Birth situations, foreign news. I mean, it's like this certainly was a kind of game back in the day. You know, it came with its own scan of newspaper and stuff like that, and they expected you to sit and read as much as play. You know, which I don't want to do that. So let's see what we can do, homie G. Musical boxes, no. The book seems to have a whole lot more of information than this one, that's for sure. London, Friday, August 17th, 1888. Are these going through several different... What? Thought that was like an X thing where you could cancel out of it. Births, marriages, in memoriam. Recent excavations in Egypt. Okay. There we are. At the London University College on Wednesday afternoon, before an appreciative audience, Dr. Ebenezer Turnbull delivered a lecture which dealt with the history of excavations and the method by which they may most profitably be conducted. Dr. Turnbull and archaeologist James Windebank and Andrew Weatherby are embarking this week on a new Egyptian expedition, excavating Katebet's tomb at the head of the Valley of the Kings near Karnak and Luxor. Saturday's lecture was illustrated by photographs thrown on a screen by the electric light, which showed vividly and distinctly not only the work done at its various stages, but the modus operandi, the conditions under which work this character must be carried on, and the instruments necessary for the purpose, and enabled those present to realize that in classical study, as in the sciences, there is an ample field of experiment and discovery open to the individual. Dr. Turnbull prefaced his lecture by an explanation of the real objects of these excavations. In these days, whatever might have given the first stimulus to such efforts, the primary motive was certainly not to find and keep treasure any more than it was the aim of the astronomer to possess a star. The modern archaeologist was little to be confounded with the treasure seeker, as the mineralogist was with the gold miner. His aim must be to restore to life the monuments of bygone times, to bring vividly before us the various phases of ancient societies, whether civilized or uncivilized. I see. Okay. Okay. Well, let's see. Maybe the walkthrough can just fast-track us through this. Weatherby died on a boat, so the murderer must be one of the passengers. Go to the shipping company. Okay. Boing. Let's go to the shipping company. Notes. Okay. So the murderer must be one of the passengers. Go to the shipping company. Wing. The shipping company. Shipping company, okay. Go to the shipping company, Jardine, Matheson and Co. for a list of passengers. See what these fucks have to say about it. Here's your list. Abdullah Al-Saud, Akram Fahmy, Louise Fenwick, Meryl Fenwick, Philip Travis, Anthony Uruburu, Andrew Weatherby, Clarissa Weatherby, and James Winterbank. You can alternately send the irregulars to get the list. Well, let's go there anyways and get ourselves a video, hopefully.
Here is a passenger list you requested, sir.
I see. Alright. I have visited Captain Herman Ramsey. I have visited Luther Tenney. The entire journey was rather unpleasant because the people were afraid of the mummy. There was also some fighting going on. Yes, spending time with his wife, Uruburu, the two Arabs. A box he always carried, keeping an eye on Fahmy, a bowl of ashes next to the corpse went missing, as he said. This is the last thing that Tenney mentions. That's Uruburu. He spent most drinking. He admits to carrying on an affair with Miss Weatherby. If you visit Miss Weatherby, she gets uncomfortable with Holmes, mentions her affair, and she admits nothing. Nothing! Nothing! Alright. Philip Travis happens to be the same reporter who wrote the article for the Times of the Winterbank's death. You learn this if you visit Travis or the London Times under newspapers. Well, let's visit Travis then. Did I already see him? I can't even remember now.
So you've been reading my articles in the Times. I'm on.
I see, yes. Okay, if you visit Fahmy, you'll discover he was dead. Yes, it sounds like I did a lot of what the walkthrough says already. Deducing that the butler's the culprit, if only all his cases were this simple. If you visit Al-Saud, you'll realize he is not home at the moment, yes. If you visit the final passengers on the ship, Louise and Mary Fenwick, you'll learn they are quite eccentric. Was that the people that I went to? Oh, but they weren't there.
Oh, look. There is a note on the door that says that they will be out all afternoon. It appears we have wasted our time.
Excellent deduction, Watson. You're finally learning.
Oh, a jackass, huh? Alright, well. Winterbank's death, okay. Visit the British Museum, okay. Would that be under B? Or would that be under museums? Oh no. British Museum.
Pity. It appears that no one is in.
However, can you tell, Holmes?
There is a sign on the door that says, "We are gone for the day."
How terribly observant, Holmes.
Elementary, my dear Watson.
Think something fucky is happening here. No, I'm not still interested. Facebook Marketplace, get the hell out of here. Did I go to Al Saud? I don't remember talking to him, maybe?
What did you learn, Watson?
Not a thing, Holmes.
You learned nothing?
Don't get testy, Holmes. There wasn't anyone about.
My humble apologies, Watson.
Alrighty. Let's go see what this fuck can tell us, maybe.
It's quite amusing, all this hoopla over a mummy's curse, I must say. Not so amusing, of course, the murder of 3 Englishmen.
Have any of your reporters uncovered anything new?
Actually, I've been in Paris the past several weeks. Just returned to London on Tuesday. I've had no involvement with the writing of any of these articles. I believe they are all the work of Philip Travis. He's one of our young reporters. For a short time, he was the Egyptian correspondent.
Was he sacked?
No. He returned to London just a few days ago. I gather he was reassigned to cover the case from here because he had some familiarity with the murder in Egypt.
Do you know Travis?
No, never actually met the chap, although I hear he's a bit of an odd duck.
Thanks for your help, Henry.
Anytime. Let me know when you catch the mummy. That's one scoop I'd like to get.
Quite. Okay. Maybe this could help me here. Well, it says for information, read the London Times. This date. Wonder if it's going to make me go through... What the hell was that? Very, very strange indeed. Wellity. Wednesday, July 4th. Friday, August 17th. Okay. Lions murdered. Deaths. In memoriam. So we've seen the recent excavations in Egypt. That's that thing there. Mysterious death doesn't look interesting. Mr. Gladstone lawn is... Alright. 5th March 1889, maybe. Let's see here. Entertainments, personal, miscellaneous. Furnishings. Ah, okay, here we are. Boing. Latest intelligence from our correspondents. Archaeologist dead in mummy's tomb. Karnak, March 4th. Professor Ebenezer Turnbull, organizer of the Catibet tomb expedition, was found dead in the tomb early this morning. The inner chamber was reached early in the year after much difficult labor, and the archaeologists were quite ecstatic over the excellent condition of the sarcophagus, chamber, artifacts, and the Catibet mummy itself. The party was in the final weeks of its work in the area when disaster struck. Mr. Turnbull had worked late into the night, remaining in the chamber alone after other members of the party had retired for the night. His body was discovered by Mr. Andrew Weatherby, another of the project archaeologists. Mr. Turnbull had been strangled to death. Ancient linen bandages were found wrapped around his neck. Upon hearing of the professor's death, several of the natives working on the excavation called upon Isis and Osiris for protection and for forgiveness for disturbing the sacred tomb. Inscriptions found on the canopic jars and doors indicate that this death was maybe the mysterious work of the ancient god Tuamautif and his goddess Nith. Interesting. Okay. Hebrides, Ireland, disaster at sea there. Shipping departures. Okay, and then it says April 12th, 1889. God, going over the course of over a year. Okay. Birth plots to kill the Tsar. Oh yeah. France and Morocco. Alexander the Great, probably not related. There's a miscellaneous. Stage, Germany and Zanzibar. Mummy strikes again, huh? Okay. Mummy strikes again. The body of James Windibank was discovered late yesterday in the room he was preparing for the British Museum's exhibit of newly discovered artifacts from the tomb of Catibet's mummy. The archaeologist was found strangled. Around his neck were linen bandages of the type used by the ancient Egyptians in wrapping mummies. Windibank's is the third murder to be associated with the mummy Catibet in the past 6 weeks. The archaeologist had accompanied the London University-sponsored expedition to Egypt. The project has been cursed with ill luck since the first discovery of the tomb several months ago. Its organizer, Dr. Ebenezer Turnbull, was murdered in the actual tomb itself in early March. Another archaeologist, Andrew Weatherby, met a similar fate on board the ship returning to England just last week. The Jardine ship, Eastern Empress, was the scene of the mysterious death. The shipboard investigation was handled by Captain Herman Ramsay and his first officer, Luther Tenney. Scotland Yard has declined to name any suspects at this time. Interesting indeed. London Diocese, I do say so myself. Let's see. The first Friday, August. Okay. I'm just going back to the first one here. Okay, yeah, so we saw that one there, yeah. Okay, so we should be good for the newspaper now. Let's get this show on the road. You must visit the following to solve this case. Okay. So I do believe that I have visited Henry Ellis. Let's just do that again, though, just to make sure. I can never be sure. Yes, I've seen him.
It's quite amusing, all this hoopla over a mummy's coat.
Boom. Jardine, Matheson and Co. under shipping companies. Is that where we went to get the mm-hmm.
Here is a passenger list you requested, sir.
Okay. Now we need to visit London University. Would that be under University? University of London.
Sorry, Holmes. No information here.
Then let's not dawdle, Watson. There's work to be done.
Now, did I... Because... Yes, okay. Could have sworn that I did that. No. And then, this has been quite boring, and I'm not even sure if I'm doing any of this right. Yes, I've seen this.
I'm very sorry to intrude on you in your moment of grief.
Oh, that's quite all right. You know, Andrew and I haven't been married very long.
Long enough?
Long enough to be a bastard? Okay. Let's visit Quentin Hogg.
Now, the thing what does strike me as odd is the passenger list of the Eastern Empress. Now, I'm not saying it has anything to do with the mummy murders, mind you, but it was a bit out of the ordinary.
What was Hogg?
Akram Farmy, for starters. He's a well-known importer, he is. For a price, a considerable price by all accounts, he can acquire whatever one's heart desires, be it jewels, art objects, or even wild animals, if that's what you fancy. I'd say he was on board that ship to transport something very valuable.
The presence of one high-powered importer on a London-bound vessel is hardly reason for suspicion.
Right-o. But Abdullah al-Saad was also on board.
Oh, yes. The well-known agent for the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire.
You never miss a trick, do you, Holmes? Well, whatever it was what Farmy was carrying, I'd say it was something those Turks wanted to get their hands on.
I see. Alright. Would that be under London Library? Sorry, Gov. You'll never catch us in no library.
Here it is, Holmes. Egyptian mummies are embalmed bodies preserved to facilitate their resurrection. Many mummies have been found, and they are almost always the bodies of pharaohs. The pharaohs believed that one day their bodies would be brought back to life. See History of Egyptian Mummies by Pettigrew, London, 1834.
Very good, Watson.
Interesting. I see. Okay, well, we went to El Saud, we visited Akram Fahmy, found out he was dead. Yeah. Okay. So Jasper Meek. Blessed are the meek.
Beg your pardon, but could I have a word with you, Sir Jasper? Dr. Watson, of course. Are you investigating the death of Samuel Sneed? I just finished with him.
No, we're interested in James Windibank.
Ah, the mummy's latest victim, of course. Who hired Holmes for this one? King Tut?
Oh, that's a jolly good one. Actually, we don't have a client on this one.
Just for fun, eh? Well, about the only thing I can tell you is that that mummy has very powerful hands.
What do you mean?
The trachea was crushed along with one of the vertebrae of the neck. Death was instantaneous. Snap.
But the papers' reports say that there were mummy wrappings found round the neck.
Just window dressing. Without question, it was bare hands. The bruises and the way that the vertebrae was crushed leave no doubt about that.
Thank you very much for your time, Sir Jasper. We're very much appreciative.
Not at all, Watson. You will let me know when you've convicted the mummy.
Beg your pardon?
Well, so I can perform an autopsy on him. Would be most fascinating, don't you think?
Of course. I'll have to remember to see if I can visit London University. Funny how they say, oh, nobody's there. It's a fucking university. There's always somebody there. H.R. Murray. Okay. Could that be in here, maybe?
Pettigrew wrote this book over 50 years ago, and there's still nothing better on the subject. Fascinating. Just fascinating. And what can I do for you today, Whitson?
It's Watson, sir.
Watson, yes, of course.
We're interested in what you may have learned about this mummy case.
Oh, so these days it's mummies you're chasing down with that fella Helms.
It's Holmes, sir.
That's just what I said now, isn't it, Whitson?
Yes, I believe you did, sir.
Let me show you what I found so far. This is the bit of linen that was found round the neck of James Windibank. I examined it thoroughly, and it is quite old, perhaps thousands of years. However, it is not the murder weapon.
Are you certain of that?
Aye. The linen is quite old, but it's not at all strong enough to strangle a grown man.
Very interesting, sir.
I also found something quite fascinating. Take a look through this glass. Do you see those short hairs on the fabric?
They look precisely like hairs.
Of course they look like hairs. But what kind of hairs? They're not human hairs. They're dog hairs. Now, look at this. This piece of linen was found round the neck of the victim on board the ship. Well, his name was Leatherby or something. It is also quite old, and on it I found more hairs.
More dog hairs?
No, my dear man, monkey hairs. I've not yet been able to identify the precise species, but it's just extraordinary, isn't it?
Quite. But what do you think it all means?
Well, I'm not the sort who likes to jump to conclusions, Whitson. But I can assure you that neither of these bandages were the murder weapons.
Interesting. Very interesting indeed. Now, because I'll just go over what I did before Herman Ramsey. I thought that I had went for him.
We had just come through a rather grueling storm, so I sent my first officer, Luther Tenney, down into the hole.
Okay, so we saw that Porky. Let's go for Porky Shinwell. Oh, Porky. Oh, Porky.
There was a couple of blokes in here just a fortnight ago what mentioned the Eastern Empress. Never seen 'em before. Haven't seen 'em since. One was a swarthy fellow, Arab unless I miss my guess. The other was an old English gent. I overheard 'em say something about a bird and later caught the name of the ship. I hope that helps you. Care for a drink here?
Quite. Luther Tenney, we visited him, if I'm not mistaken.
Let me tell you, a murder, even by a 4,000-year-old mummy, was only one odd thing in a string of bad luck on this voyage.
What sort of bad luck?
Yes. Philip Travis, we had went to see him, yes, he was the kooky guy. Anthony Arubaru, James Windibanks. Windibanks.
Sorry, Holmes. No information here.
Then let's not dawdle, Watson. There's work to be done.
Well, let's see what we can do, homage. Oh, wait. Wait a second. I wanted to see if I could go back to the London University. London University. Should that be...
Such a tragedy. Fine men all and such outstanding scholars. I still can't quite get over the shock of it.
We understand.
Okay. Well, what was the other one there? Henry Ellis, yeah. London University. London Library, we were able to see that. Was it Louise and Merrick?
This appears to have been a royal waste of time.
Why is that, Holmes?
There's not a soul in sight.
Alright, well, let's see what we can do. Ba-doing.
Hear ye, hear ye. The Queen's court stands in order. Mr. Holmes, I understand you've been looking into the mummy murders.
Yes, my lord.
Tell me then, who was Ebenezer Turnbull's murderer? I believe we're to choose from either our notebook or the directory, Holmes.
Very good, Watson.
Directory. Philip Travis.
And what makes you so certain? What was Travis's motive for killing Turnbull?
Travis felt that the tomb of Catabet should be left undisturbed. Turnbull refused to honor Travis's press credentials, barring him from the excavation site, thus jeopardizing Travis's job. Turnbull publicly lambasted Travis for questioning the doctor's credentials because of their mutual interest in Clarissa Weatherby, I'm going to say, from the walkthrough C.
And what of Andrew Weatherby? Who murdered him?
Oh. It says it is also Philip Travis.
So, you say Travis killed Turnbull and Weatherby?
Yes, I believe he did, my lord.
What was his motive to kill Weatherby, Holmes?
Weatherby scoffed at Travis's mystical beliefs. The Times was planning to replace Travis with Weatherby as the new Egyptian correspondent. While they were students, Weatherby's Egyptology dissertation was published while Travis's was rejected. Or Travis was angry that Weatherby was chosen for the expedition instead of himself. Says D.
Ah, revenge. The oldest motive in the book. Now, Holmes, who murdered James Windibank?
Well, it's also Philip Travis.
This Travis seems to be quite a busy fellow. What made him kill James Windibank?
Windibank had failed Travis in one of his classes. Windibank did not choose him for the expedition. Windibank ridiculed Travis's pursuit of ancient mysticism as an experiment in the resurrection of the dead. It says motive B. Windibank did not choose him for the expedition.
Excellent job, gentlemen. You have solved the case to my satisfaction. The court stands in recess. Until next time, of course.
Well, Watson, I believe this case is solved. And for your information, it was not the mummy.
Come, Holmes. I never thought for a moment it was the mummy.
Of course not, Watson. However, the murderer and the mummy did have one thing in common.
What's that?
They both were the only ones present at the time of the murders, except, of course, the victims.
You state the obvious, Holmes.
Ah, but it is seeing the obvious that is important. First, I saw no reason to assume that we were dealing with more than one murderer. Secondly, the locations of the murders limited the number of suspects.
Limited them? The first murder was in Egypt, the second on ship in the middle of the sea, and the third in London. You call the entire populations of London and Egypt a limited number of suspects?
No, Watson. We had to find someone who was in Egypt for the first murder, on the ship for the second, and in London for the third.
Oh, but of course.
According to the newspapers, the Eastern Empress was in Bombay at the time of Ebenezer Turnbull's murder, so that eliminated the ship's crew as suspects. Thus, I needed the list of passengers who boarded the ship at Cairo. It was our visit to Jardine, Mason and Company that provided our first critical clue. From it, I learned that Philip Travis was a passenger. I then learned that Travis was the chap who reported on the first murder. He became one suspect, but I had no motive. Clarissa Weatherby, who was also at the scene of the murder in Cairo, was another possible suspect, since she appears to have had a bit of a dalliance with Mr. Uruburu there on the high seas. So I had found her motive for the murder of Weatherby, but not a motive for the murder of the others.
Then whom did you eliminate?
Mrs. Weatherby. Her hands were not strong enough even to open a jar of English toffee, let alone strangle a grown man.
And what of Travis's motive?
It seems that Travis was a student in the Egyptology department at London University and had studied under James Windibank. He wanted very badly to be chosen as a member of the expedition, but Windibank turned him down. Instead, Weatherby was chosen and Travis was furious. So there you have the motive for two of the murders.
And what of his motive for the murder of Turnbull?
Evidently, Travis had written a vicious article questioning Dr. Turnbull's credentials to lead the expedition. Turnbull's response was quite harsh, probably powerful enough to drive an odd duck like Travis to murder.
Very impressive, Holmes.
Elementary, my dear Watson.
My word, dear Holmes. Perhaps we are in the wrong business altogether. If we had been top-notch, we should have cracked this case in 26 points. I think I will ring up the university immediately and see if we might enroll in a detective course.
So, a high score is bad? a high score is bad. So, like, I should have visited fewer people and read less information. Oi, fuckity, they. Well, it's a bit of a pain in the rump, but that looks like the mummy's curse has had its book closed on it. So, I have been Skwatter of the Sprites Templar, and I will come back later with the mystified murderess, and hopefully this next mystery will not be nearly as convoluted and drawn out. Well, as I said, I've been Skwatter of the Sprites Templar, and I am out. Peace.